Alright, so we're about to make our tiles. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to get some clay and we are going to wedge it real nicely, get all the air bubbles out, and we're going to make sure that we got about, at least 2 pounds. And then what we're going to want to do is we're going to beat the clay. Like some people say, we're going to beat it like it owes us money. That's, a little violent. You don't have to treat it like that, but we're just kind of flattening it out so that it gets, sort of square, sort of round, rectangular. You want it to be at least as wide as your fingers can spread. If you can spread them that wide, you're looking pretty good. Then what we're going to do is we're going to lift up the first sheet of the canvas, put our clay right up there by the slab roller up front, drop the other piece, make sure that that clay is nice and snug, and you don't have to touch these top two handles. These are, just leave them alone. All you gotta do is grab the steering wheel, and if you roll it one way and it doesn't move, let's go back the other way, then you can feed it through a little bit, and then boom, here we go. It's coming through, it's coming through. Look at that, that's a huge slab right there. So, stuff like that's gonna happen. Now how are we gonna transport this big old fillet of salmon over here? Basically, we're gonna take this wood, and we're going to just kind of carefully rotate it on over. And we'll put it on this thing. Now at this point, you're going to have two options. You're going to go ahead and use one big and one small tile cutter, or you could do two small ones. It's up to you. But this first tile cutter fits right there, nice and snug. I look around, make sure the clay's going around all the edges, and boom, I just kind of put my weight down on it, just like that. And look what happens. Now, if a little bit comes off like that, we just pull the remaining. And since it's stuck right now inside, all you gotta do is just kind of lightly, just kind of push it out. And you can sort of move that over if you want. Same thing with the little guy. I would probably leave a little bit of space. You get a nice clean edge. Boom. Make sure you put your weight on it, pull it out. Oh, that one's clean. Look at that. Clean like Listerine. It'll pop out, and there we go. Look at those edges. Now, the next thing you're going to want to do is you're going to want to compress it.
So you always, before you start to compress the surface, you want to put it on a bat. It doesn't have to be a big bat. It's a perfect size bat. So we're going to take care of the top. I like to compress with a damp sponge. And I first go across the surface in one direction. You could rotate this little bat and go across the other. You can also use the edge of a rib. So, and compress. Now you'll notice when you compress the surface, it's starting to expand a little bit. But you want to compress it evenly and rotate, and be really mindful of the position of the rib or the sponge. Do we have an air bubble in this one? If we had an air bubble, let's say we had an air bubble like that, what you want to do is you want to pop it and get rid of the air bubble. You might actually have to do that with your needle tool and score it, compress it out, and do that. So sometimes it's worthwhile just making a new one if there is an air bubble. This one does not have an air bubble. Now that we have this compressed, what I like to do next is you could take something, this is a fettling knife, it has a really nice long edge. You could use this to sort of cut the edge of the surface, and I don't like having things straight up and down, so you want to be sure you're paying attention to the angle. So I'm going to come here and angle it and chop down, and I'm just going to compress and drag across. Be sure your finger's not in the way. This also isn't sharp like a knife, so it won't hurt. But you can see there's a little sliver of it off. So for people that like hard, straight edges, you could do it that way, and that looks pretty good. You can also do it too where you take the sponge. Let's say you want more of a soft edge. You could take your sponge and kind of curve it like this around the edge, and you could see that I come on the edge, I'm doing a strong, like a smooth stroke, and rotate. And you always want to do this evenly. If you do too much on the one side and you come across, don't worry about it being perfect. You might add a little bit, so there's a little bit more water on this side of the sponge. One way to take care of it is by taking your fingers and shaping it. And we're compressing it And what I'll have to do is I can also compress this corner. I can have this more rounded. You can also use this to where that extra clay, we could just simply cut it off with the edge of our fettling knife, because it is extra clay. I can now come back with my sponge, because I want a smoothed edge, and get a good coat on it. I could take off the extras a little bit. If you do that, the chunkies will likely come off. And we're not going to worry about we're just even coats first. So I'm going to come across here and come across this way. Come this way across. It's okay if we get it on the bat. So I worry first about getting the top nice and even. And then I can also paint the sides. I can always carve that off if I don't like it, but you know, it looks nice. We spent all that time and energy on it. So here I'm gonna come carefully across. You can also get some really interesting textures on here. So maybe you don't want even strokes, depending on what kind of a visual effect you want to do. So yeah, you can push it and use the qualities of the brush to create textures. So we'll come across, just kind of smoothing it out. Looks like it's a little thin on this side. Maybe reload. You don't want it to be super thick, but we definitely want it to be even. I don't really want any streakies on here, so I'm going to keep going like this a little bit. And I think I keep trying to add more, but it's still streaky. So I'm just going to give the sides a coat, and then I'll let this dry a little bit, and I'll try it again. So I'll do this, my first layer here.